There's probably a life you have imagined for yourself. Maybe you have imagined it for years. A healthier you, a different career, something you wanted to build, somewhere you wanted to go, someone you wanted to become. And strangely, you still haven't said no to that life. You just kept saying, not yet. Not yet because you're busy. Not yet because money is tight. Not yet because you're tired. Not yet because you're afraid. Not yet because this isn't the right time. And some of those reasons may be completely real. But eventually, you have to ask yourself a difficult question. How long can not yet continue before it quietly becomes never? Most people aren't waiting because they don't care. They're waiting for something to change. When work becomes easier, when they have more money, when they're more confident, when the children are older, when life becomes less complicated, when they finally feel ready. And that sounds reasonable, because surely there will be a better time, a cleaner time, a time when everything finally lines up. But life rarely gives you that. One problem disappears, another arrives. One responsibility ends, another begins. One fear is conquered, and another takes its place. There is always something. Maybe the perfect time isn't late. Maybe it's never coming. There's something comfortable about saying someday, because someday allows you to keep the dream without facing the risk. You can still imagine writing the book without writing the first bad page. You can imagine becoming healthy without experiencing the difficult first weeks. You can imagine building something without discovering whether it will succeed. You can imagine repairing a relationship without risking the conversation. Someday protects the dream. Because while the dream remains imaginary, it cannot fail. But it cannot succeed either. And that's the bargain nobody talks about. When you avoid the possibility of failure, you often avoid the possibility of becoming something more. At first, waiting feels temporary. A week, a month, until this project finishes, until this difficult period passes. But human beings adapt quickly, and eventually waiting becomes normal. You wake up, work, handle responsibilities, come home, scroll, sleep, repeat. Nothing is necessarily wrong. That's what makes it dangerous. Because a life doesn't have to be terrible for you to realize it isn't the life you wanted. Sometimes the most difficult place to leave is a life that's comfortable enough to tolerate, but empty enough to regret. And slowly, the person you intended to become starts feeling further away. Not because they disappeared, but because every day you postpone them. You practice becoming someone else. This is the uncomfortable part, and it deserves honesty. Sometimes circumstances really are holding you back. There are responsibilities you cannot abandon. People who depend on you. Financial realities. Obligations. Situations you didn't choose. Discipline doesn't mean pretending those things don't exist. But sometimes circumstances stopped being the reason a long time ago, and we kept using them anyway. Because eventually the question changes. It stops being, "What's stopping me?" and becomes, "What am I still waiting for?" Permission, confidence, certainty, motivation, someone to believe in you, What if none of those things arrive? Will you still begin? Because there comes a point where waiting stops protecting you and starts costing you. Every decision has a cost, but so does indecision. That's easy to forget. Not starting costs something. Not speaking costs something. Not changing costs something. Not leaving costs something. Not trying costs something. And the price isn't always obvious today. Sometimes you pay for it years later, in questions. What if I tried? What if I'd started? What if I'd believed in myself just a little earlier? Failure can hurt, but failure gives you an answer. Regret often gives you nothing except a question you can no longer do anything about. So what do you do? Quit your job tomorrow? Move across the world? Risk everything? No, that's not discipline. That's impulse. You don't need to transform your entire life tonight. You need evidence that you have stopped waiting. One page, one application, one phone call, 1 hour, one workout, one conversation, one small amount saved, one decision, something real, something that exists outside your imagination. Because the moment you take the first real step, something changes. The dream stops being something you're waiting for. It becomes something you're building. You'll probably still be afraid. Start afraid. You may still have doubts. Start with doubts. You may not know exactly where the road leads. Take the first step anyways. Confidence doesn't always come before action. Often, confidence is the evidence action leaves behind. You do something difficult. You survive. You learn. You improve, and slowly you begin trusting yourself. That's how change happens. Not through one enormous moment of courage, but through small decisions that repeatedly say, I am no longer waiting for someone else to build my life. Think again about that life you have imagined. Not the perfect version, the real one, the healthier version of you, the calmer version, the stronger version, the person who built something, changed something, finished something, became something. That person isn't waiting somewhere in the future. They are being constructed by what you do now. And maybe you'll fail. Maybe the plan changes. Maybe what you want today won't even be what you want 5 years from now. That's okay. The purpose isn't to perfectly predict your future. It's to participate in creating it. Your future shouldn't be something that simply happens to you. You should have your fingerprints on it. There will always be reasons to wait. Some will be real. Some will be fear wearing reasonable clothes. Learn the difference. You don't need permission to begin. You don't need perfect circumstances. You don't need to know every step. And you certainly don't need to become someone else first. You begin as you are, where you are, with what you have. Because the life you've been postponing isn't asking you to finish it today. It's only asking you to finally begin. Don't promise yourself another someday. Give yourself a first step.